SFU's honorary degree is the highest honor conferred by the university. Honorary degrees are awarded to distinguished individuals in recognition of their scholarly, scientific, or artistic achievement, or in recognition of exceptional contribution to the public good through professional or philanthropic activity. Honorary degree recipients' achievements celebrate our university's values and serve as an inspiration and role model to our students and our graduates and our communities. The honorary degree will now be conferred. To present the honorary degree candidate, Dr. Ashok Khosla, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Joy Johnson. Dr. Johnson is SFU's Vice President, Research and International, where she leads the university's strategic research initiatives and facilitates international opportunities that foster research collaborations and student exchange. Dr. Johnson is a professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences at Simon Fraser University. Dr. Johnson.
Madam Chancellor, I am honored to present Dr. Ashok Khosla, a renowned pioneer and expert in the field of environment and sustainable development, both in India and around the globe. In 1965, Dr. Khosla was a member of the team that designed and taught Harvard University's pioneering flagship course on the environment. On completing his PhD in experimental physics from the university in 1970, the government of India asked him to return and establish the country's Office of Environmental Planning and Coordination, the first environmental agency in the developing world. In 1976, Dr. Khosla joined the United Nations Environment Program to set up the first international information system on the environment, a radical innovation called Infoterra. Dr. Khosla subsequently founded the Development Alternatives Group, a social enterprise formed in 1983 that supports financially viable social enterprises for marginalized people, aimed at regenerating degrading lands and implementing renewable resource technologies. A trailblazer in his field, he has developed and helped define key frameworks for controlling pollution and managing the conservation of natural resources and the wildlife. Focused on assessing environmental impacts, preserving natural and cultural heritage, and raising public awareness, Dr. Khosla has served in senior positions with many international commissions, summits, and organizations for the environment. These include the World Commission on Environment and Development, the United Nations University, and the World Bank. He has been a co-chair of the UN's International Resource Panel and president of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature and of the Club of Rome. He has served on the boards of several environment and conservation organizations, such as the China Council for International Cooperation on Environment and Development, the World Wildlife Fund, Energy Globe, and Expo 2000. Among his many awards and honors, he is an officer of the Order of the British Empire and was awarded the UN Saskia Environment Prize and the Zayed International Environment Prize. Madam Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of this university, I ask that you now confer upon Ashok Khosla the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Ashok Khosla, by virtue of the authority vested in me and in the Senate of this university, I do hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Dr. Ashok Khosla will be hooded by Dr. Wade Parkhouse, Vice Provost and Associate Vice President Academic, and Ms. Romana Khan-Hamani, Registrar and Executive Director of Student Enrollment.
Congratulations. It is now my great pleasure to call on Dr. Ashok Khosla for his convocation address.
Chancellor Anne Giardini, President Andrew Petter, distinguished teachers, proud and no doubt relieved parents, and most important, all of you, and indeed all of us, whose life for learning is only just beginning. I feel deeply privileged to be invited here at the convocation ceremony of a university whose central purpose and commitment is not just to knowledge and excellence, which after all is the job of every university, but equally to ground-level praxis and relevance, which are commodities that are very rare in the academic world. 50 years ago, when I was a student, we used to dream of what's called a reflective practitioner, a professional who not only had skills, engineering, law, medical, whatever, but also had the ethics and the morality of a good human being. Reflective practitioners were far and few between, and universities were beginning to realize that something needed to be done about that. 50 years later, we haven't improved very much, but this particular campus, this university, is certainly at the leading edge of making that dream come true. But engaging the world, like nostalgia, is not what it used to be. It takes a lot more courage today and a lot more insight than it ever did before. The successive industrial and institutional revolutions that have taken place over the last 300 years have improved the lives, the health, longevity, and fulfillment of so many human lives, seem also to have arrived within less than 10 generations to a full circle of pretty grim version of a payback period. The payback time today is confronting all of us, particularly the young, the ones who are going to go out into the world. With each day that passes, our world faces rapid and ever-accelerating change, which President Petter also referred to a few minutes ago. We face domineering machines, we have to deal with voodoo economics, and a bewildering runaway complexity in our world. As we gasp for fresh air and clean water, while we drown in a sea of wastes, we push nature and society to their limits. In some cases, we've even transgressed those limits irreversibly. Life-threatening consequences are what we face right now. I'm not here to tell you about Doomsday. The reason I'm here is to say that this can be prevented, but unless we move fast and unless we move now, the generations that follow us will pay very heavy costs. Rise in the level and in the acidity of oceans, extinction of species. We are now in the middle of the 6th mass extinction, scarcity of fresh water, Might be difficult for people in Vancouver to realize, but there are cities where water is not available for more than 1 or 2 hours a day. Right now in Southern California, in Cape Town, and in my own city, the capital of India, water is a major problem for all the citizens. And so indeed are a lot of other things. People are now fighting for sand to construct buildings. They're fighting to protect their land and soils and rivers because of the massive increase of use that we've put them to. And then, at the same time, we have half the people of our world living outside the mainstream economy, many of them in abject poverty and persistent hunger. We now seem to be barreling down the highway of mindless consumption and ceaseless destruction, all for a few short-lived comforts and temporary gratifications. And the rich few get richer, while the great masses get poorer, and nature gets massacred by both. To turn back from this lemming-like collective suicide and to enable civilization to survive and flourish, institutions like this university and generations like yours in particular, and the individuals in each of those generations have to take a certain amount of responsibility because they are critically important. Each generation has to figure out the life it wants to live and the contributions it wants or does not want to make. But this generation that is graduating today is certainly going to have to address the issues that no one really had to address before. When I graduated almost half a century ago, the mood in countries like mine, India, was how can we build a truly great nation out of the rubble of a benighted, poverty-ridden colonial past. Like all of you, I was one of the very tiny minority in our world who had the privilege of studying at the best institutions of learning. The first driving concern for me at that time, and still today, was the question of responsibility. What is the responsibility of those who have received so much support, so much knowledge, so much wealth, towards those who have not? What is the responsibility of the 10% to the 90% that got left behind? My own answer has been to try and build institutions that can create opportunities for those who were left behind, and to help them to create or access widely needed life and livelihood solutions. With speed and scale, two goals that unfortunately still remain elusive in most areas of our life and world. How can the virus that so dramatically infected the spread of mobile phones be genetically engineered to do the same for eliminating hunger, poverty, and extreme deprivation? The second driver for me at the time when I was growing up out of college and into the real world of work was to acquire the skills that I would need to make the kind of contribution that would make a difference. Given the complexity and the speed of change that President Petter referred to, obviously one major part of it was adaptation. Every day, things were changing so rapidly that if you didn't adapt in a Darwinian sense, you were going to be at a disadvantage. But in part, I must go beyond what President Petter said. It's not simply a matter of adaptation anymore. It's a matter of fashioning, creating the kind of future that we need also. So while you're adapting to changes beyond your control, You need to bring within your control the changes that you want to see for the future. And that is much harder. I basically came to the conclusion way back in the 60s that what we most needed was systems thinking, clear, logical thinking, which is the basis of any good decision making. Unfortunately, systems thinking wasn't taught in normal academic courses. So I chose to study the physical sciences, which were a close cousin, and which I found personally deeply satisfying and rewarding, but also as a surrogate for understanding how the world works. And the third driver that was a deep concern for me was legacy. What is the legacy that our generation will leave to the future ones that follow us in terms of the strength and the resilience of our social systems, social institutions, the health and productivity of our natural systems, and the wealth and equitable distribution of our huge economic assets that we've built up. Over the decades, I've been fortunate to have had supporters and co-workers with whom we were able to make a small difference in these domains. I very much hope that you will be as fortunate, if not more so, because we desperately need those changes. Only then can we expect a more sustainable future for all our fellow citizens on this beautiful, life-filled, but oh so fragile planet, which we call our collective home. Madam Chancellor, having missed all 4 convocations of my own formal degrees, I particularly want to thank you as well for giving me this opportunity to finally receive a degree of my own. Thank you.